I can't wait to tell you about this coffee. Let's start the podcast.
I can't say welcome back, can I? Because we always say that. Bam! No, I'm joking. Welcome back to the Perk Pace Podcast.
Hello.
Let's do the coffee first.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Let's go.
I just said pre-record that I think this tastes chewy.
Tastes like a pack of Chewits.
It's just like...
No, this has got the taste of... Oh, what's that taste? Peaches.
I'm afraid this is another bag of coffee where it's not in English. So I'll explain why in a minute.
It smells like...
I'm getting peaches.
Smells amazing.
It smells...
But also smell the coffee in the bag because it smells awesome.
Is that pomegranate on the front?
Also, I love the bag. Look how nice that is.
Wait, I'm going to tell you where this is from as well. This is cool. I think, is that meant to be a passion fruit on the front? I think it's meant to be a passion fruit. It smells good, doesn't it?
That smells great, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this...
What I did in that bag?
We've got 2 podcasts back to back where someone's gifted us coffee. This is my sister Martha. Hello, Martha. Went to Barcelona and went to one of the coffee shops that we recommended in our favourite hospo episode. Yeah. It's called Nomad in Barcelona.
Oh, yes.
And she said to the woman behind the counter, oh, my sister owns coffee shops and she loves coffee. And this girl got really excited and was like, you have to give her this coffee. And there's something about it, which is different. Mm-hmm. Come on, tell me what it is, lads.
Oh, I'm terrible at this game.
I know.
Well, I think it smells great.
Do you know? Oh yeah, of course you know.
And I know what it is.
Go on.
I think I've learnt from previous podcasts. It's decaffeinated.
Decaf!
Yes.
Also, because we're filming 2 podcasts back to back, so it's like...
I am high as a kite!
Can't just sit here.
Actually got it wrong. It's bloody caffeinated!
But like,
Jesus.
So Martha was like, oh, do you have to give her a decaf? And the woman was like, no, this is really great coffee. And it is.
And it doesn't taste. It tastes,
That's what I love about it. So it says something like...
Sponsor us.
It's from Colombia, region Cauca. It's another Bourbon Rojo, which is a red Bourbon.
Know about Bourbon.
The producer, we've got their names, Wilton Benitez, Granaya Pareso. Process, here we go. Fermentación controlada. Controlled fermentation.
You're doing very well. I couldn't be doing
Okay, so I'm just for the coffee nerds, I just want to try and say what I think that is. What's so great about it not being in English? I would assume that's like they've somehow trapped the coffee in a controlled environment, temperature-wise. Please, coffee nerds, tell me in the comments what you think fermentación controlada means, but that would be my guess.
Wow.
But that is fruity and delicious, and we can drink it clean conscience.
And the design of the bag is very nice.
Nomad.
Yes, Nomad.
So yeah, thanks, Martha. Okay, so today we're going to talk about training, but like changes in training and your attitude changes to training. 3 different ages of your life: 20s, 30s, 40s. Mm-hmm. So where would you like to start?
Oh, good question. I think we should start with, I guess... Oh, I've got a question for you.
Oh, I've got questions for you too. I mean, like, let's just... I want to intro...
We need context to
I want to intro it a little bit better, actually, because Matt and I come from completely different sides of the coin. Matt has trained seriously from a very young age. I have only trained seriously for the last few years of my life. Mm-hmm. And it's ramped up and up. And I think as well, like, I know, or we both know, like, who listens to this podcast and sort of age demographic, and it is quite varied.
Yes.
And obviously everyone's here for different reasons. So we were hoping that we could shed some light on, the attitude changes.
Yeah. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure.
I think for me, like you say, because I've been doing lots of different, I guess, I don't know, you want to call them modalities, but like different forms of exercise since I was about probably 10. Mm. So when I was 10, I know I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, and to give you my life story, but listen to me. Started out doing martial arts when I was 10, about 10 or 11. So wasn't really into any sport at all. Because I think, again, this is something to bring up, but like it's very common nowadays for, because I think society's changed and everything else, but for parents to get their kids into lots of different sports at a very young age. I'm talking like 5, and you know, kids are going to dance classes, they're going to like, you know, gymnastics, might be going to like whatever, like even things like
the gym,
jiu-jitsu or whatever, like martial arts, so which I think is great. And I you know, in hindsight, I would have loved to have, you know, maybe done that a little bit earlier, but at 2. Yeah, so did martial arts when I was 10, and we said this before we started this podcast, but I think now, and we'll go on to it, I turned 35 about 3 weeks ago, and I had a real sort of like realisation looking back at the years, because when you think about it, I've been training for 25 years, which is crazy. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I was no like super athlete, but I did my bit, I got to a really good standard. But I think that, like, when we look at training in different age categories, and we'll come on to this, but I don't want to sort of peak too early, you have to really look at people's, like, history. You have to do, like, an MOT of an individual.
Interesting.
So, you know, me and you are good examples because of what you've just said. My exercise history goes back 25 years. Yours probably goes back, what?
And I've always gone to the gym. That's part of the story. But like actually, 5 years. Let's say.
Which is mad, right? Which is mad. So I think that, you know, people need to take into consideration
the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you need to do a little bit of like an MOT on yourself. You know, as an example, like when I was in my 20s, I'd been training for 10 plus years. I could probably handle a lot more. Well, I know I could. I could handle a lot more volume, a lot more intensity. I used to recover super quick just because I was at that period in my life where my body was almost like, I don't want to use the word, but like peaking in terms of my physical attributes and everything like that. But as I've gone into my 30s and now in my mid 30s, I think that I'm definitely not recovering as quickly.
I was going to say that. Do you notice that you're recovering slower?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and again, I have to be careful with what I say because I don't want to sound like I'm showing off too much. But like, I know my body really, really well, and I wouldn't say that I notice it a huge amount, but that's because I'm probably not training as hard as I did in my 20s and teens as I am now. So it moves the bar a little bit. I'm learning that obviously like less is more, and yes, I don't recover as quick, but then that means that I do focus on the things that I didn't focus on in my 20s, like am I sleeping enough? Is my nutrition dialed in? Is my hydration dialed in? So you're almost playing with like levers a little bit.
I was going to ask you about that actually, because obviously it seems second nature to us now to talk about fueling and sleeping and recovery, but this is a relatively recent thing to come into like the common arena so much. When you were in your teens training track and field, you had coaches and stuff, right? Yeah. Were they talking to you about, number one, what you ate?
No.
Were they talking to you about your sleep?
Not really.
And also, I heard something on a podcast recently where someone was saying, I listen to podcasts sometimes, where a guy was saying that it was almost like bordering on like disordered eating in his track
for athletes,
club, because it was always like, you need to be lighter, Yeah. Was there any of that pressure?
Nah, and to your point as well, social media makes me sound super old. Social media wasn't really about when I was like, well, social media didn't come about until like 2012. So by then I was probably like at the peak of what I'd done athletically. Watch this space. And so it wasn't really like about. So I didn't have like an influence of like, oh, you should be doing this. Podcasts weren't even that big of a thing. Yeah. I think my own interest in me being at my best caused me to read a lot when I was younger, and that's why academically I went in to do my degree and everything like that. But I'd always known that like sleep was important and food. But if you were to ask me, well, did you watch how many carbs you had and absolutely fucking not. No. When I was in my 20s and teens, I ate whatever the fuck I wanted. Yeah. But I knew I needed to eat well. Don't get me wrong, I didn't eat crap. And we'll probably come on to that because we were talking about like trade-offs and sacrifices and all that sort of stuff. I didn't drink at all, which again we'll come on to. But I was always like, I was so zoned in on, I need to eat a lot because of the training that I was doing at the time. But it wasn't a conversation that was ever. I mean, we're talking like what 2006 I started, or 16, so started running for club then, and then it went all the way through uni until like my early to mid 20s.
But like these days, I know this from speaking to people, coaches are talking to their athletes
100%,
about this.
which they should be,
yeah. About like what they're eating, when, that kind of thing. So I was just interested to see like how much, I'm going to say the word pressure, because I understand that it can then cause other like issues and fixations.
I mean, there's a lot of athletes that have publicly spoken about those sort of battles with like body dysmorphia and things like that. So, and
I know that really normalised, so to speak, in female athletes, but this podcast I was listening to was actually a guy who was like, no, we were all being told as well, you need to be 10 kilograms lighter. And, you know, I think he was saying he was over 6 foot, you know, if you are a runner over 6 foot, 10 kilograms is a lot of weight to suddenly lose. And to suddenly feel that pressure, I can imagine that has a massive psychological effect. I've definitely had psychological effects. I know many other women my age group, but from the whole other side of it, which is we grew up in the 90s when Kate Moss was saying nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And that was our
cocaine
like, role
and
model.
cigarettes.
That was our role model.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, but there are the two sides to it, and both can end up in psychologically unhealthy places.
So to that point then, when you got into your late 20s, early 30s, how did you feel about getting into fitness and exercise? I
mean, I actually think it's important to go back to the beginning of that, because the whole way through school and teens, it's so wild to say fashionable when you talk about body type. And this is again where I think Matt and I differ so much. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you did feel pressure from media to look a certain way, but I think it was different for guys and girls growing up. And I was the fat friend, always. Genetically, my dad's Greek. I hold a lot of weight in the lower part of my body. And to say that fashion can even be a contributing factor in what your genetics have given you is wild.
And you'll do anything to shape and define yourself towards that superficial or whatever goal.
I guess I'm a little bit fortunate in that body type kind of became fashionable at some point. The Kardashians for all their sins and that sort of era of like having an ass and thighs and stuff. But for me, my relationship and attitude towards exercise and diet was all about trying to be as small as I possibly could be. It had absolutely nothing to do with performance. It had nothing to do with health whatsoever. And therefore, when I've had gym memberships since I was 14, and I would just, it was punishment. I was punishing my body. I would sit on the bike or I'd sit on the rower. And have no idea what I was doing. No idea, no concept of it whatsoever. And also, let's talk about finances here too, because when you're in your teens and 20s, you're lucky just to afford the gym membership, let alone any guidance. But late 20s going into 30s, to answer your question, it was for the first time starting to think about what my body could do and celebrating what my body could actually do.
No, I think it's interesting because I don't know about you, but I definitely think that when I was younger, I used to look at, and this is actually a really good example. When I was in my late teens, when I was running really regularly for club, at track and all this sort of stuff, I was training in a group that had, I think one guy was like 35 and one was like 37, 38. And looking back now, I always used to see those guys as
old,
quote on old, but they were absolutely, smashing it. One of them was called Mark Turner and the other one was Nick Hazelwood. So shout out guys if you're listening. But they were, I always think about those guys because you have a certain expectation about what it's like until you get to that age. So, I never ever said to myself, well, by the time I get to 35, I'm not going to be fit or anything like that. Because even now at this age, I honestly feel physically the best I ever have overall. Yes, obviously I'm not running the times that I was when I was younger. So you could class that as like, oh, was that your peak? But I think in terms of like what I'm capable of doing, I don't feel like my age is physically or mentally impairing me to not go on to do good things still. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I just think there's still loads left.
It's moving the like training for a specific outcome as in a time versus overall well-being as well. 100%. And sort of like if the marker is just the time but you feel like shit or whatever, but actually you're performing consistently well but you feel good, a lot of people would argue that's a better outcome.
Do you think you're in the longevity game or performance game?
Well, this is where that imposter syndrome thing comes in again, because I'm like, who am I to think about performance? But I think the difference is, don't get me wrong, there are aesthetic goals, of course, but it's way less about aesthetic.
Yeah.
And so I guess performance is the right word, because it's more about celebrating what my body can do, what I'm capable of, and the improvements that I can make to be the best version of myself.
Because you're, and again, I'm just like, I'm making it very black and white, and it's not very black and white, but like how you are now is better than where you were when you were in your 20s, right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I'm so much healthier. Like so much healthier. Honestly, you wouldn't believe what I used to eat as well, because I was just like when I was a student, I would wake up and have a massive bowl of cereal because my body wanted sugar.
Yeah.
I then wouldn't eat all day, and I'd have like a bowl of soup in the evening. And somewhere in the middle, I would have gone to the gym and spent an hour doing cardio.
Yeah.
And I was always ill. I always had a cold. I mean, I guess I'm lucky that that's kind of the extent of the health issues, really, because that's horrifically underfueled. Oh, but then in the evenings I'd be going out getting shit-faced, drunk, and the rest. Because one of the things I was going to ask you actually was, do you ever feel like you like sacrificed a part of your life? Because if you weren't drinking in your teens and early 20s, I bet you felt like you were missing out on some stuff.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think because I was so hell-bent on like proving, whether it was to myself or other people, that I was like, you know, quote unquote enough and Matt's the sports guy and all this sort of jazz. Even from a young age, and again taking it back to like when I started martial arts, it taught me so much discipline that I took it into track, like I took it into athletics and everything like that. So even when I was, you know, honest to God, from 10 years old until I was probably 24, 25, when I started getting into like corporate life, I lived like a monk. Like, and I look back now and I do feel sorry for that kid. You know, when you talk about like you're in a child and all this sort of stuff. I do feel sorry for him, but I also feel very proud, because I did have a lot of pressure, and I had a lot of like, you know, when most kids, I'm not saying it's the best thing to do, but it's part of life, right? You know, when most kids are like 14, 15, 16, and they're going out socialising, they're meeting people, they're doing this and the other. They're going to the park. That I wasn't. I was hitting a heavy bag, you know, and I was like trying to just make myself this fucking thing, whatever it was. Yeah, and then when I got to 16 and I got my black belt, I was like, fucking, you're the man. Yeah. But then, because I got that, I was like, okay, what's next? And then even going to uni, I remember Freshers Week at uni, everyone was going out getting smashed. Everyone was like, you know, you go to Oceana and you drink with everybody. And I'm there with like a fucking J2O in my hand. And people were going like,
who's this
Who's
guy?
This knobhead? Yeah. Like, you know, oh, you're so bored. I used to get that all the time. You're so boring. You're so serious. And don't get me wrong, I'm not special. Like, there's a lot of good athletes and people out there that I know that did the same thing, but this is just me talking from my experience. But I used to get it all the time. I don't think I touched a drop of alcohol till I was, I don't know, I had like a beer when I was 20 something.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, push the boat out. But I just didn't, because it went against who I told myself I was.
Yeah.
And I used to have a lot of guilt and shame around even just going out. Because I was like, this isn't serving what you're trying to do. And it's got its good things, but it's also got its negative things.
I was going to say, yeah, it's got to be balanced, because like I'm thinking,
I used to have family that used to do it. I used to have family, because I come from a really working class, you know,
go to the pub on a Friday.
Yeah, like all my uncles drank heavily, they smoked heavily. Yeah. My cousins do the same, and nothing against them. But then I'd go to family parties, and they'd be like, "Ha, you're not drinking. You're not a proper Baileys." Yeah, I used to get that all the time. And to them, it wasn't a big thing, and you know. But to me, it was, and it did linger with me, and it felt awkward in social situations as well.
Well, I mean, I just think there's the complete other flip side of the coin, because from the age of 14, I was in a bush drinking cider with my friends. I joined a band and we went off and I drank a lot and a lot of late nights and on the road not eating properly. And I have so many experiences in my life because of that are so great. But I was talking to Ian about this the other day, so it's my birthday this week, and it's like a number that in my head is just a bit like, ugh. And I'm like, God, I wish I'd started this sooner.
Yeah.
Like, imagine what I'd be capable of if I started this sooner. And there's got to be a balance between those two things. Yeah. Like the opposite end of the coin, where obviously I had loads of great experiences, but I wish I'd applied myself to quite a lot of things more. Not just like fitness and sport. I wish I'd applied myself to loads of things more. Yeah. But also, younger Matt, taking a load off every now and again and living some experiences.
Would have just been fine, yeah. Because the reality is I ended up doing it like loads when I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
Because one, I was around more money, so I had more access to everything. And I was in the environment where, you know, to get along in the corporate ladder, you got to network and you got to drink and you got to fucking get smashed and go to work the next day. And at that time, obviously, I'd let go of this whole, like, you know, athletic dream. Right. So I was like, okay, and then I had to almost like make up for all the lack of social stuff that I did previously. And then, you know, like anyone, you just fall down those holes. And then had another like rebirth when I got into my late 20s, when I was like, right, this corporate thing is not for me. That's when I left like the bank and everything. And but then it's all just stopped.
So, okay, so that's interesting because you have like the real like intense intro to like training and an attitude towards it. I had a real like, it was a punishment thing. There was no enjoyment.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. I was punishing myself every day for eating that thing or whatever. Yeah. And then probably fell off and stopped going to the gym for a while when I went into a corporate job. Yeah, I think so much of it though, because I would say that I've kind of found a real enjoyment of it, and like I said, celebrating what my body can do and it being healthier in my 30s. Yeah. So I wonder if this is just a really common theme, and like people should tell us if they resonate with this, because you just start to know yourself better.
Yeah.
You realise what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, less of the pressures of you're boring, or I went the other way and then just stopped drinking in my 30s, and dealing with people being like, oh my God, you're boring. Then it's still a big social pressure. But
what would you tell that younger person?
Oh, that's a good question.
I feel like we're in therapy here.
There is so much of that I really value and had some really great experiences. Yeah. But I think I would tell that person to shed some really shitty relationships pronto.
That's interesting, yeah.
Because there's like one in particular that just I wasted years of my life. And no good came of it. Yeah. Other than I guess me being like, I will never take that shit again. And that's quite powerful. Yeah. But yeah, having the balls to walk away from people that, I mean, I think a lot of people say this, don't they? But having the balls to walk away from people that aren't getting it, don't serve you, don't support you, don't love you.
Energy drainers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's not even about training. But what would I say? I'd say to her, oh my God, stop punishing yourself for what was literally just given to you genetically. Because that is such a horrible journey to be on, and one that I think a lot of women are going to resonate with. Yeah. Because now it's almost like, yeah, but I can squat shitloads more than other chicks because I was built that way. Yeah. And then that became like the journey in my 30s to like going and celebrating strength. Again though, fashion moved that way. Trends moved that way, because it went from being like cardio bunnies to celebrating strength more. Girls were in the weight like section.
Trends like, yeah.
And the trends are wild. I was saying it to you earlier. Like when I was joining a gym in my 20s, the classes were spin classes, Zumba classes. There was one called Body Pump. Do you remember Body Pump classes?
Do you remember that guy on the DVD special that went crazy in America and all over the world? And he was like a bald guy.
No.
It was called a work. Some work.
Yeah, it was called something, wasn't it?
I don't know what you're talking
Do
about.
you know what I'm on about? And everybody had
Yeah,
abs
I do,
and they were covered in
yeah.
like oil doing
No.
jumping jacks and push-ups and
Oh, body pump, maybe, well, it was literally you had a weight and you just threw it around. And I actually injured my shoulder for the first time ever in my life because they're not watching you and you've got like a pretty hefty weight and you're just like jerking it over your head. But now all the classes are, well, like Metcon, High Rocks based, and we're celebrating strength. So obviously bigger than just our trends and attitudes are society's trends and attitudes. And actually on that note, I was just going to mention social media again because training, I guess, as hard as I do now or as hard as we do now, for me, because now social media, we're all exposed to seeing people train like this. Here's my day, here's what I eat in a day, here's how I train in a week, all of this stuff.
Here's my Strava.
This, when I was younger, that was reserved for elite athletes as far as I was concerned. You didn't do that kind of thing. So social media's had a big part to play in it.
Yeah. This is a big talking point, I think. I'm probably going to get a lot of stick for it.
Go on.
No, I just think like when you talk about like social media, and I spoke about it the other day on socials, like there is such a trend now around, let's use running as an example because it's the most obvious one that I can think about. And it's absolutely great, by the way. And I love everybody setting goals, trying to run, all this sort of stuff. But I think people quickly fall into, this is how I have to make my life look because I'm part of a certain social circle, or this is where I get my sense of identity and achievement from. And balancing it with like running will absolutely fuck you if you don't do it properly. Like they underestimate it, and because running is such a low skill level.
Oh, totally.
It's like anybody can think they can just go and run, and anybody can, and I love that, but you've got to do it right because you know it'll wreck your central nervous system. It's high impact, high load force production running. It's not like, you know, you think you're just jogging, you work out what the force is over 10-20k. It's a lot on the body. And my point is that if you're not somebody who's got like a history of running, so your ligaments, your soft tissue, everything like that is built around dealing with that sort of load. If you get to your 20s and your 30s or your 40s and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna run a fucking ultra. Like, they're ultras for a reason, or a marathon is a marathon for a reason. And I'm not saying people can't do it, but they've got to do it right and not fall into that trap of like doing marathons back to back, like doing a marathon 1 week and then even in 3 weeks time you're going and doing an ultra because you know you want to challenge yourself or whatever. That's fine, but
work up to it.
Yeah, but like you'll wreck yourself because you'll get to the end of it and then you'll be like, oh, why have I got shin splints, or why have I got like a fucking stress line fracture? And it's a toxic habit of like, you see it all over social media. You see people who have no history of exercising or running, and it's not about them not doing it. It's the fact that they're underestimating the impact that the long-term impact that it will have on them mentally and physically.
I think that, I mean, it's one of the main things I wrote down about my change in attitude towards it as well. It is financial.
Yeah.
Because, or education, one of the two. Because all the information that I guess you're talking about is available out there. I could read, if I wanted to, or watch videos about, and getting the understanding that you have to guide me. I ain't gonna fucking do that. I don't have the interest to do it, right? Yeah. So that's when it's like, you, in your 30s, generally might have a little bit more money, and that's when you could look to get a coach, have that kind of relationship. And also, so I think, when was the first time I had a coach? I started working with, shout out Luke Rogers, powerlifting coach, probably in my 30s, if not very late 20s. And actually was a big part of me gaining confidence in the gym, full stop.
100%, yeah.
Because, like I said, we were starting to celebrate strength.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing. So finding the right person to help me do that. Yeah. Again, same goes with running. I work with a different coach now because it's a different area that I'm working on. And yeah, I think if left to my own devices, I would definitely just be like, let's just go run.
Yeah, let's just do it.
And like we say, like, oh, I'm injured at the moment, but I haven't been like riddled with injury. No. And like it definitely has been.
Yours is just part of the natural process of, you know.
Well, apparently
It
it's
is what
very
it is.
common in women,
Yeah.
full stop. But yeah.
But
Anyway.
I just think people need to
Definitely.
approach it in the
And
right
I think, and it's easy for me to say because I have a coach and I'm not a coach, to say go and get a coach. But I think that's a really big part of taking it seriously or changing the way that you train.
Yeah, 100%. The other question that I was going to have as well, which I did put down here as well, is do you think getting into your mid-30s that you've been surprised about how training is? And I suppose it's a difficult question for you because you just started in your late 20s, mid early 30s. So I suppose the question is like, do you know what your potential is yet, or do you think it's changed, or do you physically feel? Because for me, I can compare 20s to 30s to whatever else, whereas you've just got this is what I'm capable of.
I think that
Like, do you? I suppose okay, I'm fucking simple it down now. As you've gotten older, do you feel like you've slowed down, or your training's changed? Or,
oh no, I feel more capable now
Yeah.
than I ever have done.
Yeah.
I feel stronger, faster, fitter. Like, I mean, I actually, to the point where I actually Googled a few months ago, can your lungs get bigger?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I can breathe better. It sounds wild, but like the way that that my body is breathing. No, your lungs can't get bigger. By the way.
No, I can't. No. When you were saying that, then I was like, yeah.
But I was just like, this feels so different, and it feels great. But I worry that I've got like a natural ceiling of what I can achieve at this point.
What do you think it is?
I don't know, but it's like, okay, say I want to do a high rocks and like sub 120, or like, is that actually I'm never going to be able to get there?
And I don't mean to cut you off just because what I'm thinking about, but that point there, I think because of the rise of like fitness racing and everything like that, we are now bringing to the forefront these amazing people who are in their 40s and 50s, or even like their late 30s. Look at it this way. I love this sort of thing, but if you look at the top high rocks athletes in the world, for men as an example, they're all in their late 30s.
Yep.
They're all like 35, 38, 39.
Yep.
Some of them are in their 40s, early 40s. So
it is possible.
It's 100% possible if you do it right.
Yeah.
And not rush.
But I mean, like, I've then got the whole of the flip side as a woman, though, is that your hormones start changing.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the thing I've noticed the most, actually, is... And the problem that we have at the moment is because we don't know what's going on inside our bodies. Unless you're, like, Nick Bear and you're getting your bloods done every 4 weeks.
You've got access to it, finances.
You don't know what's going on.
No.
So all of these things that are changing for me, which is, like, the one blood test I did have came back that I have really low estrogen, is like, is that an age-related thing? Or is that as a result of the training, and therefore I need to change something in my diet or whatever? And you just don't know. Because I don't know what my estrogen said 10 years ago, and I don't know what it says later in the month or anything like that. So it's difficult to know, but then, all you can do is control the controllables, right? And that's, again, an attitude change because, like I said previously, you're not caring, and you said it yourself, what you're eating. You need to eat, but, now there's a lot more thought going into what I eat, when I eat, and sleeping properly.
I think as well, like, people forget that, when you're in your 20s, you have fuck all to think about. Like, you don't have necessarily a stressful job, you don't have, like, commitments, family life, whatever, so you can just solely sleep, train, repeat sort of thing. But as you get into your 30s and you start to get a job, or you have a family, or you have a business, there's a lot to be said around obviously that, because it's a big stressor. So like, sounds obvious, but as you get older, you get more stress in your life.
You want to balance it differently.
Yeah, and that affects it completely as well with age.
If you had to put in a sentence, like an overarching, how your attitude to training has changed over the last, let's say 10 years, because that will take you from 25 to 35.
Yeah.
How do you think that's changed?
It's tough, that is.
Because you're saying, and you've said it a couple of times recently, it's all about achievements, numbers, achievements, goals. Is that still there, or are there other motivations?
Yeah. So, and this is something that actually I was always worried about losing, and I don't think I've lost it yet, but I'm always thinking that I'm going to lose it. Is that like dogging me? Is that fire to like still want to chase things and be competitive? Because again, going back to what we said, it's a huge part of who I am. I think I put a lot of my identity in being like that guy that like, whatever. I've still got that, but I think what's changed more is that when I was younger, I didn't give two shits about like how I felt, how my mood was,
Right.
how, the longevity, how happy I was in life. As I've gotten older, I definitely think that I've identified that like it's okay, Matt, to have training in your life and it's there because it makes me happy. I don't have to run fast or live
I was about to
strong
ask you, does it make you happy? Do you enjoy it?
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
It's huge. Honestly, if there was one thing that someone could take away from me, and that's why, again, like when I see my brother doing things and I sit back and I go, I am so fucking lucky to be able to move the way that I do, or try to push myself physically in all different areas. So I think that's definitely changed for me. Like I've definitely got an appreciation for one, how much it's a big part of my life and it makes me happy. Like it can completely change my mood. I can go from like being quite snappy and moody, but if I go for a run or go to the gym, I'm like I snap back into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that's changed from like 25 to 35. 25 was like Mr. Aesthetics. I want to look a certain way. I want to run, do whatever. But Mr. 35 is like, that is still there and I'm still going towards it. But it's like, I want to be doing this shit when I'm fucking 75, 85. Like I want to be able to, I probably won't be running as much because it's, it messes up your hips and everything long term and whatever, but I'll be slamming and bamming in the gym. Like that's what I want to be doing and that's what I think of. And I think I also think about like people in my family and like how I want to be able to move and not walk up a hill without getting out of breath. And I want to be that granddad that's like chucking his fucking grandkids about and he can chase them around the park. And that's what I think is creeping up on me now.
Again though, I think that's about available information because we are, I've never studied sports science or anything like that, and even I am aware of the fact that if you strength train now, you will move more when you are older. And I think we're becoming more and more aware of that.
Like how important like just muscle mass is as well. And there's loads of research around one of the biggest key indicators of literally lifespan is your VO2 max. So
is it?
Yeah, those with like high VO2 maxes live longer. It's just a fact. But the muscle mass one is huge as well. There's, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's been they do like an MRI scan and there's a picture of somebody who has been physically active all their life through their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and you can see the femur. And then you can see loads of muscle mass, dark matter around that bone of this 70-year-old. They've got another 70-year-old who hasn't been active. Their bone density's less, it's reduced, and they've got hardly any muscular structure around that femur. And it's just like left them. It's like night and day. Just because that individual has been, not saying you have to be like some sort of super athlete, but you have to,
look after yourself.
Yeah, you've got to look after yourself and having things like good mobility, good overall strength, you can lift your own body weight up and stuff like that. It's night and day in terms of longevity. So,
Ian, how do you think your attitude's changed to training over the years? I've known Ian a really long time. I think when I met Ian, he was 29. And we've been together
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
16, 17 years.
Yeah.
And when I met you, you were rock climbing and doing some bicep curls for the girls. He's a very good climber,
Is it?
Grip strength.
I wish people could see what you were doing.
It's probably not for the best.
Yeah, it's probably best.
Think about who that guy was.
I think difference is when I grew up, you didn't have access to what you have now, and that's the difference now for me. The knowledge you can easily get, you can gain. You go online. There's coaches for everything. There's coaches for everything. When I was growing up, you didn't have that. Like if you wanted to be in sports or a professional sports person, you've really got to be driven.
Yeah.
And obviously, me being slightly ADHD, I don't have that focus.
But we're not talking about just becoming a professional
No,
athlete.
I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is like that's how hard it is. Now, like, you know, I go down the gym, and there's kids down there that are like 10, 12. They're training with strength and conditioning coaches.
Yeah.
It's like it's a different world, isn't it?
It is.
But how do you feel about it now? Why do you train now versus why you trained then?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Because you've always been more motivated to get up and go to the gym than I have.
Yeah, I think like I wanted to be stronger, but like I think over the past few years I've realised that isn't the goal for me. I think my issues come from the fact that everyone I train with is younger than me, so I'm trying to keep up with them, and that doesn't really work. So like, yeah, trying to stay fit, healthy, like you say. I think like, you know, train into your older ages so you can cope with you know, doing your cardio shop or whatever is essential. And that's I think training for life is what it should be.
This is going to be a obvious question, but do you think that do you notice the physical difference in terms of like recovery or your strength really?
The weird thing is no.
Yeah.
Because I have this thing in my head where it's like you're never going to beat me.
Yeah.
And it's like I always going to try and push myself. So apart from the injuries, do you feel physically different from when you were in your like early 30s? Yeah, I think like I'm probably fitter and stronger than I've ever been.
And most people would say
physically and mentally.
Yeah, most people would say that. Oh no, well when I get to like
it's all downhill from 30.
I know, but this is the thing, isn't it? It's like everyone's always telling you societal like things. You know what I mean? It's like
you will feel worse. You will deteriorate.
And it's like, you know, you say, oh, you'd never be able to do that. Well, when Roger Bannister run the 4-minute mile, he was like, oh, no one will ever do that. And some guy does it. I think it's
always impossible
what are the
to
limits? What are the limits? You know what I mean? There's like
the limit doesn't either. I think
boys running marathons for like good times.
Yeah.
I think it's all downhill in your 30s if you are relatively sedentary and
100%.
you know,
if you abuse your body.
I think it's an excuse for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But no, I feel great. She says, clutching her hip.
Yeah, I feel great. Every time I stand up, my spine feels like one of those little fish you find in the
I'm not hanging around with you two. You just fucking...
it's
catching. Not having that.
I feel great. But yeah, I think the main differences for me is it's about prioritising health as opposed to... and I do enjoy it now. Wholeheartedly enjoy it, and I never did previously. And it's about training for a lifestyle and feeling good as opposed to purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
Team
Yeah.
GB.
It's an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah. I'd love to hear what other people think.
Yeah.
Because we've got quite a broad demographic of people that listen to this, different ages. So please tell us what training means to you and any changes.
Drop it in the comments.
Please do. Come and cheer these lads on at the Birmingham Half Marathon.
Yeah.
Matt will be carrying me.
I'll run back. I'll finish and run back.
Thanks.
Help me. Right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.